Hello, beautiful people of the internet. Welcome to the first Games and Culture review, the other part of this channel
We
that
haven't
we
done one yet.
that we haven't done one yet because Nick and I have different priorities when it comes to gaming. January, you were playing Tekken. I was playing like a dragon.
I'm still playing Tekken.
February, I was playing Persona 3 Reload. You were playing Tekken. It's
We're both trying to look
March.
away.
We're both playing Peach right now. But Nick is still
Technically,
playing Tekken. So this is the other half of this channel. We'll still be doing podcasts every other week. We hope that for big releases that both of us play, we're going to be doing reviews. So some of the upcoming reviews that we're definitely going to have on the channel, Princess Peach Showtime, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I'm sure there a litany of other titles throughout the year. I'm fairly excited for Star Wars Outlaws. I don't know if you're going to pick up that one. It's probably going to be pretty good.
we can
But
adjust in the
if there's
podcast.
a game that we both are playing, or it's a game that's big enough where we feel like we have to play it, you'll probably see a review on it here. So
Yeah,
the
reviews are
first
not going to
one,
be.
oh, go
I
ahead.
say reviews aren't going to be orderly. Like there won't be a rhyme or a reason. We're just like, well, we want to review this game. Drop it.
Yeah, because both of us do have full time jobs and other responsibilities. So playing a game, we don't get paid to do it yet. We're not
That's
getting
the key
set
word.
early
That's
review
the key word.
codes.
Yet.
Um, Capcom,
That's
both
the
of us are huge fans of yours. If you want to start sending review codes, I'll happily take one for Ace Attorney 7 and Monster Hunter Wilds. Um, but until that happens, yeah, there's not going to be a steady flow to these. That's why the podcast is there. But whenever the mood strikes us or we both play a hit game, you'll see a review for it. And so the first one that we're doing here isn't a hit game, but it's one that both of us really cared about because of our love of another game franchise. This game actually came out last year, so it missed all of our top 10 lists. Nick has firmly said that it would have been a part of his top 10 list.
It would have been top 3.
I wouldn't have rated so highly. It would have been part of my top 10 though. But the title of the game is Tyrion Cuthbert, the attorney to the
Attorney,
Arcane
attorney of the Arcane.
of the Arcane to the Arcane Storms, whatever. And it is an Ace Attorney inspired game. Both of us are huge fans of the Ace Attorney series. I bought the trilogy when it came out on the Switch because they had kind of missed my purview when I was younger. I immediately told Nick about it, got him on board. He then binged the entire series, even some
And
games that we
then
don't have in the States. And
and,
so
and
yeah, Ace Attorney's
Danganronpa, and then
and then
here.
Danganronpa, and now we're here. So yeah, Ace Attorney is something that's very near dear to our hearts. So this game caught my attention last year because I saw it on Steam, and I immediately told Nick that we should cover it. And Nick picked it up earlier than I did and said, "Yeah, we actually absolutely have to cover it." So it is an indie Ace Attorney inspired game, and unlike Ace Attorney, which is set in roughly our world, this one is
Roughly.
set in a fantasy world where murders aren't committed with guns, but with magic. And that's where our hero Tyrion Cuthbert comes in, defending those that are wrongly accused when magic is in play. And so since it is an Ace Attorney inspired game, its gameplay is no different. That's what we're going to cover here first. Uh,
Inspired is putting it lightly. This game heavily lifts some things from Ace Attorney, and its gameplay is Ace Attorney gameplay. There's just no
yes,
way out of that.
yeah.
There
So
are
you play.
some wrinkles to introduce. We'll get to them, but it is. If you play Ace Attorney, you'll play this.
Yeah, pretty much. You play as the titular Tyrion Cuthbert, who is an arcane defense attorney investigating and trying cases while trying to change the status quo in the kingdom. That's kind of the overarching plot. Cool thing is Tyrion is not just out there being like a normal human, like he's Deku before All Might or anything like that. He has his own magic which plays into the gameplay. It's called the Eye of Horus. Allows Tyrion to kind of read people's minds and emotions. Um, Kind of like Athena a little bit
A little bit.
from Ace Attorney 5.
I I did get that vibe. That's what they were inspired by. I do think they were able to take that idea though and execute it better than Athena has so
Oh, for
far.
sure, for sure. And so since Athena was a part of a trio in that game, you weren't using her all the time.
Mhm,
You're Tyrion all the time, so you're actively using this ability, and they do work
mhm.
it into the story quite well. Um, Gameplay is broken up into three different sections. You've got investigations and trials, which are holdovers from Ace Attorney, but there's also a newer um, something that separates it from Ace Attorney, and I put it down as the arguments section, which is kind
Mhm.
of inspired by a little bit of Danganronpa.
A little bit.
Um, so getting into investigations, they are handled pretty much the exact same way as Ace Attorney. You're moving from location to location, interviewing witnesses, uh, and basically kind of in a point and click adventure type thing, investigating the environment.
Yeah,
Everything is pretty blatant when you're what you're
it's
supposed to look
it's
at.
obviously the UI is looks different from Ace Attorney games, but you can tell if you again you played Ace
It's
Attorney before,
not that much.
it's not that different. Like you understand even the slight things that may have changed, like the wording of it, you're like, oh, that's what that is. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's very much Ace Attorney investigations.
Yeah, the biggest difference with the investigations, at least, and it's really not even that big of a difference.
Mhm.
You have your cohort. Her name is Celeste. She has access to more magic than you, and one of those magics is detect magic, so you can kind of see what magic was used in the crime scene.
Yeah.
Again, really no different. It's just another thing to click on. Uh,
Yeah, you hit a button and it's activated and you're still clicking for evidence again. So
yeah,
it's just a little add a wrinkle for the world. It's not
yeah.
it would function it functions the same way you would think it would in Ace Attorney.
Yep. A little bit of a wrinkle in my opinion, is that they just didn't use this enough. They always prompted you to
Mhm.
use detect magic. Like obviously you would want to use it in the crime scene. So when you're in the crime scene, you just hit the detect magic. There really wasn't any opportunities where you were using it of your own free will, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't
It always kind of
recall
prompted you.
I don't recall using it just out of the blue. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, so I definitely think they could have hidden a lot of stuff underneath that,
Mhm.
but instead they prompted you with it. Getting into arguments, like I said, this was the third gameplay style that kind of was introduced. It's inspired a little bit by Danganronpa, where it's a series of statements where Tyrion must use not only the powers of the Eye of the Horus, but as well as evidence and the person's emotions against them to basically convince them for a variety of things, telling them something about the victim, telling them something about where they were when the victim was killed. Arguments take lots of forms.
Yeah,
Um,
it's I would say it's somewhat a similar idea to also to Ace Attorney's the Makatama,
yeah,
we have to present evidence to break the locks. Only this time is you can do that to kind of break their health bar, um, but you could also use empathy and logic, not just pure evidence.
yeah. Tyrion has like set comments that he will say to who you're arguing with based on their emotions or based on his solid reasoning. So it's not always just evidence that you're showing. What I liked about this is that the arguments just didn't happen in one gameplay form. They happened during investigations sometimes. They happened during trials sometimes.
Mhm.
And so just didn't it didn't it made it seem like it wasn't just a part of one gameplay style. It was used everywhere, which kind of lends itself to the story of the game. Arguments happen
Yeah,
anywhere in real life, so a game should be the same, you would think. So,
yeah.
and then moving into trials, again, pretty much the exact same as Ace Attorney.
I mean, right
You're
down to how the gallery moves their heads around,
Yeah,
how they move for the defense bench, the judges bench. I mean, it is very heavily inspired by Ace Attorney.
yes, yes. If it wasn't for the fantasy theme, I would say ripped off. But it's the
Yeah,
fantasy theme, you got to say inspired because it's not the
yeah.
same. You are still cross examining witnesses, pressing their statements, using evidence to call out contradictions in their testimony. Um, I called out this, and I don't know if you'll agree, but the biggest difference in my mind for the trials was just the sheer amount of evidence that you had at your disposal. because you
Um,
had evidence, you had character profiles just like in Ace Attorney, but then you also had the very large catalog of spells um,
yeah, that
that
was
were there.
that was its added bunch because it's like again, like it's like Ace Attorney instead of like Danganronpa takes out your most of your evidence when you have the truth bullets. So your 30 options are whittled down to 6 before you even start.
Hmm.
Um, this is more like Ace Attorney where like you have all your evidence at you at all times. You got to figure it out on your own, but you're not against the clock. Um, the outer wrinkle is you have the magic. I didn't think it was too bad up until the final case. The final case, like, here's all the magic. Have fun.
Yes, yeah, it wasn't too bad. I would agree with that. Um, I really like the addition of the spells though because it's a double edged sword. Let me explain that. This is one of my gripes with the game. I love the spells because it adds an extra layer that is based in the world that this game takes place in. So yeah, you're an arcane, a defense attorney. Magic is the name of the game. My problem then is that they just don't use it enough because they go out of their way to say the spell is what it does, the incantation, the time limit it lasts, all of this stuff, and I just don't feel like enough of that was used. There's two moments, and we'll get into it in the spoiler part where they use the incantation as part of the contradiction and one where they use the time as part of the contradiction. And I just wish they would use that a whole lot more because you added this depth of something and then just kind of dipped your finger into it.
Yeah, there were some clever ways too. I thought they incorporated it. I do wish it could have been used more. But I could also see, it's hard with so much evidence at play. It's hard to justify that.
True.
Um, so well, I did. There was one we're gonna spoil. I thought was super clever how they operated it. But so we'll
I
get that
I
for later.
imagine that we are thinking the exact same moment.
Hmm.
I'm just saying.
It's
Um,
probably
but yeah, I just felt that I wish they could have done a little bit more with the characteristics of the spells in terms of this testimony. But that pretty much wraps up the gameplay. If you liked Ace Attorney, you'll like Tyrion Cuthbert. Point blank. If you wish Phoenix Wright had some magic, this is the game for you, man. The gameplay is exactly like it. I mean, from the first case, they have you. they have from the very first case. You're like, okay, this is Ace Attorney.
yeah. No, it
Sweet.
wasn't. It. I guess I was going to get to the story because obviously the story is its own flavor. I'll give it that. They use, I think, smartly. They know people going into this is going to expect a lot of Ace Attorney stuff, so
Mhm.
they are relying on tropes from the game, waiting for it to kind of you get into a false insecure, like, oh, we're going to rip them off, and then to flip the script.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
do think they play with the tropes of Ace Attorney a lot,
I also,
very well.
in addition to playing with the tropes, they also do kind of lean into a couple of them for comedic effect. I mean, the first case is your partner being put up for trial, just like Maya, every single damn game. So like that little homey touch kind of makes you feel at home. Like, okay, all right, these people
Yeah,
knew what they were doing when they were inspired by this game. Okay, cool. And then they rolled into what makes them unique.
yeah.
Um,
That's a beautiful way of doing it.
yeah. I felt as though the story was pretty solid.
Mhm.
Most things had fulfilling resolutions. Um, I will say that the story can be a little bit predictable at times. I
Little bit.
I never got a 1-5 or a 2-4 or a 3-5 moment from this game. There's something special about calling out the scar underneath Godot's mask that can never be replicated. But I didn't feel as though there was any twists that were nearing that level. I will say the game tells a succinct story. They bury their leads just deep enough where if you're paying attention, you'll find them, and if you're not, maybe that maybe you don't. But I never was really wowed by anything that they did in the story.
There was a couple moments I was about, but they're near the end. The first few cases are definitely, the first three in particular, are definitely predictable.
Yeah. Um. But I will say though, there wasn't a case that I got super bored of in this game.
No, No.
like 1-3 or 2-2 or 3-2 in the original trilogy of Ace Attorney stick out in my mind as like do not like this case. It's not interesting to me. All of
The
the
circus case.
cases were fairly interesting in this game.
Yeah, there was no circus case in this game like there was in Ace Attorney 2.
Exactly. Exactly. The lowest point of the series, probably.
Yeah.
Jesus. Um, but yeah, all of them also led into the overarching plot, which I was like, because there's some throwaway cases in Ace Attorney where they
Mhm.
didn't do anything for the overarching plot, but everything kind of tied neatly into each other as we approached the finale of the game. Getting into some characters here. I like the cast of characters. My least favorite is just Tyrion himself. Like,
Really?
yeah, I just he had his moments, but like he's just no Phoenix Wright. I didn't think that he was the most interesting character on screen at any point. I'm infinitely more invested in Celeste or Arya than I am Tyrion. I just he just missed a wow factor for me.
Interesting. I mean, I don't. I liked him a lot. There's a lot of Phoenix Wrightism. I'll say that. There's because he even has the hunch up over. You
Yes.
know, the sweat thing. He pounds the desk. So there's a lot of Phoenixisms in him.
Yes.
More so, I would feel like he himself has more Ace Attorney character tropes in himself than any other member of the cast does. Um,
That's an interesting
but
take.
I don't know. Like
Yeah, I just
the judge in this game is not stupid. Like the judge in Ace Attorney is a fucking idiot.
yes. Yeah. 100%. um
um,
I liked Arya as a prosecutor. She reminded me a lot of Edgeworth and just the relentless pursuit of justice.
yeah,
Um
she definitely is a lot
I
more closer to Miles than other ones.
Yeah, yeah. Celeste is a great companion. Is a
Mhm.
great companion. Um, we'll get into more of my feelings of Celeste in the spoiler section because I have to spoil some things in order to talk about her. Um, uh, I really like the just the emphasis on the side characters. I mean, um, the sisters, Lucio, everybody around the main cast kind of got good development, or at least a mini story arc that you see a very clear beginning, middle, and end to. Like I said,
Yeah,
Tyrion is just the low point for me in terms of the main cast. He's too everyman for me, if that makes sense.
that's an interesting. I mean, it's fair. I just interesting take on that.
Because like don't get me wrong, Phoenix Wright has some everyman characteristics as well, but his charisma and his kind of wackiness also kind of take him over that edge for me, and I just don't feel like Tyrion has the same. Like
Mm,
Tyrion reminds me of a whole lot of Apollo.
interesting. Yeah, I don't. I mean, that's fair. I liked. I don't like Apollo that much in these training games.
I mean
I
that's
feel the way
fair.
you're. I feel the way you're talking about Tyrion now is how I feel about Apollo. I would put. I don't. I wouldn't put Tyrion above Phoenix. Absolutely not. But Phoenix has 6, 7 games to under his belt, so
Yeah.
it's not exactly a fair comparison. But I was more compelled by Tyrion than I was Apollo. I've never been a big fan of Apollo.
That's why there's two of us. We have different opinions. It's fine. I'm just saying. Um, I will say though that there are some major characters in the story that really didn't feel like they were fully developed. The glaring example in my mind is Eris. She's very important to the story, which we'll get into in spoilers. And I don't see a clearly defined arc for her.
Yeah, I mean, I do think
And
that is
with the
because
events of the game, you feel like there should be more there than what there was.
yeah, I can see that. I definitely do think the game does kind of sequel bait a little bit.
Yes. I
Um
have that actually written down.
yeah, the game sequel bait. So I think that's probably why. Um there's some there are a few plot threads they leave hanging just in case. I do feel like close most of them as
Yeah.
a if we don't get a second chance, these are resolved, but they do leave some doors open in case they can walk through them.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel Eris falls in that one.
Yes. And I also just feel like this is still within characters. I feel like the world itself was kind of underdeveloped as well. You have this whole religion around the Scale Lords. You have this whole religion in the kingdom north of where the game takes place, um, that has the Lumina in it. They introduced demons into the game, and like none of that is given any screen time or screen time enough to learn about it at all. Like,
So yeah, the Wyvern Guard itself and the Scalar, I mean that stuff, the stuff of that religion of Wyvern Guard comes to a head in the final case, but yeah, it does not give them enough time throughout the game to do it. It literally is the final case. And then the stuff with the demons and then the kingdom to the north, I think is again they're sequel baiting because
yeah,
they does sequel bait with that stuff in particular, especially the
yeah,
kingdom of the north. So that's why that wasn't answered.
yeah. I just wish there was still a little bit more texture given there,
Yeah,
because the game takes place in this one kingdom with this very clearly dragon worshipped like religion, and they don't really even tell us anything about it. And so when it does come to a head in the fifth game, there's lots of questions of like, okay, like what is actually happening here? What does this mean for the people of this kingdom? So that's really my complaint. There was there's
mhm.
just some gaps, and I understand sequel baiting stuff, but even with sequel baiting, you want to start to show a little bit so that
Yeah.
when it does happen in the next game, you're like, ah, oh, okay. So
Yeah. I
that's just
do will
my
say I do think because this game was crowdfunded
mhm.
for that, and they didn't meet their goal for release. They only got like 2/3 of the way there.
Oh, that's a
So I
shame.
could have, yeah, I could have gotten. That's probably could have been a reason why this didn't have the budget to finish it out and flesh
Yeah,
things out more. Um, However, the good news is, from what I read, is the game did sell well enough so the developer has already started work on the sequel, and he's now able to do it full time.
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's what we want to hear from our indie devs right there. Um, but in terms of just like generality, that's pretty much everything that we can talk about. I mean, my final thoughts here before we get into spoiler territory. It is a fantastic. Tyrion Cuthbert is a fantastic love letter to Ace Attorney while offering enough uniqueness to stand on its own merits. All the cases were interesting and were uh, entertaining for the length of the game, and the additions of magic and arguments to the Ace Attorney formula added extra depth in the game, just enough to separate it from Ace Attorney. Like I said before, I wish more characters and concepts were explored a little bit more to deepen the story and the lore of the world. But what is here is complete enough to be satisfying. Like you were saying, Nick, most everything has resolution enough to make the game satisfying in case there wasn't a second one. Um, and then my final point in terms of about the game as a whole, its story was a little predictable. Uh, there were some satisfying twists, but nothing that quite reaches the levels of its predecessors with the Ace Attorney games. So if I had to give one standout criticism that hopefully gets resolved in the second game, it needs that wow factor twist. Just to really not only heighten the stakes of the game, but also it's just perfect for a game that's riddled with mysteries. A good mystery needs a twist. And I'm not saying that anything will reach 2.4 or 3.5 in terms of that just like
I mean, those two are the king of
a,
the king of the
le-
castle.
a league of their own. Like,
Yeah.
oh my lord, the amount of times that I'm just sitting there against Godot, like, what do I present to him? I know what it is, and you just have to get over that hump. And then when you do, it's like your mind explodes. Like Tyrion Cuthbert, the next one, just needs that moment, and it deserves that moment. There's lots of hard work that was put on display here. Um, do you want to give your final thoughts, and then
Yeah.
we'll score?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, most of your thoughts cover what I thought. I mean, this game is legitimately just a love letter to Ace Attorney. These fans or probably like both of us, wanted more of it. And fortunately, Ace Attorney doesn't come out that often, so they okay, we'll do it ourselves. And I think they did a great job of doing that and fulfilling a niche that's just not given a whole lot of attention. Um, I do think there was some twists that were nothing on the level of 2.4 or 3.5. Those are just League of Our Own, so I'm not going to compare that. It's not fair. But there were twists where I'm just like, oh crap, I didn't see that coming. Particularly in the back end of the game, 4 and 5 particular. But yeah, no, I was kind of enthralled with this game. The watch the first case, things kept going. First case, I was a little, okay, this is very much Ace Attorney with your partner's frame for murder again. Like, okay, oh sure. But the second case, at that point, started really playing with the tropes. I feel, and from then on, it was smooth sailing for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's your score, Nick?
I'm going to give Tyrion Cuthbert or Tyrion Arcane a 9.
Yeah. See, we talked before the show, and I knew exactly what he was going to give it. My score is a little bit lower. Nick's a little bit softer on this one. I think that there was room to do more. My final score for Tyrion Cuthbert is 7.5.
So average out to 8.25.
Yeah, averages out to an 8.25. You heard it here first. The reason why it's a little bit lower, I really wish that more of the world was explored, and some of the characters that were not really developed were important. And again, the game lacked that final nail in the coffin wow factor for me, that twist that just like wraps everything together. Oh my god, I can't believe Morgana was listening to the thing about the pancakes. Oh my god. Like, you just needed that moment, and it didn't have it. So, I have high hopes for the sequel. I absolutely will be buying the sequel. If the developer crowdfunds the sequel, I will gladly donate. It was a fantastic game. Just we're scaling up, and I can see that. So,
yeah. One thing we didn't touch on before we go to the spoilers, the
Sure.
music.
Oh yeah, the music was fantastic.
The music
Music's
is
fantastic.
I didn't the fact that they came out swinging. I've put some of the tracks in this game in my playlist. Like, they came out swinging with this soundtrack and we're up there with some of the Ace Attorney greats. Like,
Yes.
I love the final like, I don't want to say argument music. Fantastic.
Yeah. There was its version of the Cornered theme, or like it's like Stand In. It doesn't quite meet Cornered, but like, it's really, really good. There are lots of violins, which I really liked, because it's just a good instrument, and it adds a lot of like just really, really good tone to the music, which is really, really cool. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that back up, because music's great. So this is the part of the review where we're going to talk a little bit about spoilers. In a story-driven game like this, there's lots of points that we would love to make, but really can't, because of the story. We don't want to spoil it for anybody that wants to go in fresh, but for people that want a little bit more of what we think about the story, we have to spoil it. So, if you want to go into Tyrion Cuthbert, that's why we already gave you the scores. We already gave you the spoiler-free review, so that you can go in unspoiled. But if you want more texture, or maybe you're just not going to play the game and you just want to hear our thoughts on what the story is, spoiler section will start now. We're going to go through the cases very briefly. 1 through 3, I think we're probably going to get through pretty quick, but 4 and 5, where the meat and potatoes of the game really are, we'll probably spend some more time there. But this is your final warning. Click off the video if you want to go into Tyrion Cuthbert unspoiled. Stay if you want our kind of more in-depth view of the game. So right now, 3, 2, 1, spoiler territory. Okay, so as we discussed in the spoiler-free review, first case is your companion getting tried.
Like, they want to get out of the way first, because they don't do it again. I'll give them credit. They don't do it again. There are other parts I was worried. I'll take it back. They do kind of do it again. But I think they do it again in a interesting way. They don't just do it again off rip.
Yeah.
Um, this is the only time they do it just off rip. Your partner is accused of murder, and we're going. You're defending.
Yeah.
But it's very much is the tutorial case. I will say the one thing I liked about this tutorial case in comparison to other Ace Attorney tutorial cases is in other Ace Attorney tutorial cases, you're always facing what's his face? I don't know his name, but Payne.
Yeah.
The schlub prosecutor. They don't do that here. There's no stupid, easy prosecutor beats. You face the prosecutor of the game in
Yeah.
the first trial. They're introducing the
Yes.
characters immediately.
I
So I
also
do
like,
appreciate.
to your point too, I also like how the first trial is a full trial because there's also an investigation stuff. Typically in the Ace Attorney games, you're
Just a
only
trial.
in the trial and you're spoon-fed evidence to keep using, so they can teach you how to use it, and you don't start investigating until the second trial. So even though this trial is shorter, it is still a full trial, which I really really liked because
Yeah, dude.
it felt like the game respected you a little bit more.
Yeah, it felt like a full case, unlike other extreme first cases. They don't feel like first full cases. I do think that's why they expect you said you respect the time because most people going into this are going into it having played as attorneys. They're like, you know how to play this probably already. We're just gonna assume that's the case. We're moving on.
Yeah.
So I do respect that.
Yeah. In terms of content for the first trial, you you're in this town with your mentor. Her name's Tamora. Um, Tamora does not die, by the way, so that's also a little
We'll touch
change
more on
up.
that. We'll touch on that on second case. 'Cause I do like how they handled her as well.
Yes.
Um,
You're
the
in this town. You stay the night at an inn. The proprietor of the inn dies. Well, is murdered, he is stabbed in the chest with a sword, and that sword belongs to his daughter Celeste, who is your companion for the game. Um, and very early on, the game tells you that its overarching theme is nobility bad, common man good, and basically their struggles between the two, because because Celeste is a commoner, and there is the person that reported the crime was a noble named Pierce.
mhm.
Spoiler alert: Pierce is the one that murdered
Yeah, I mean, this
murdered
is still a
Celeste's dad.
extraterritorial case, so you see who the murderer is before you go to trial, just like you do in other Ace Attorneys trial tutorial cases. So it's like it is a little annoying, but I get it. It's a tutorial case. So you want to
Yeah.
kind of they want you to start knowing who it is and work your way to that instead of just trying to guess who it is in the first place.
Yes. And so through the investigation, you find that Pierce used a shape liquid spell to manufacture a blade made out of some juice that Celeste's dad was carrying. Stabbed him, found her stored sword, stabbed him again to frame Celeste. So right out of the gate, I feel like this first case is more complex than any other cases
Oh,
in Ace Attorney.
by far, by
Um,
far.
and again, it's also a good tutorial because it teaches you all the Ace Attorney stuff, but also introduces you to magic by having magic be
The
the
weapon.
murder weapon, so to speak.
Hmm.
Yep. Um, yeah, Pierce is the one that did it. Everybody kind of is surprised that you would take Noble to the stand, but you are the paragon of justice so far, so nobody's above the law.
No.
And you're making a name for yourself by putting a Noble up there. Really can't think of any other standout moments from the first trial. It's just a solid first trial, solid first trial.
Yeah.
Um,
They do a good job of establishing characters. I mean, with Celeste, she's brought in. She knows she didn't do it, but she last thing she'd had with her father before he was killed was an argument. So she's thinking she last thing she ever did was piss him off, and that her full father hated her before he died. And we see a softer side of Tyrion go through that case where he's using evidence at some point to show her no, that wasn't the case.
yeah,
Despite you were arguing, he still loved you.
yeah. Which I thought I liked the fact that the game took the time to do that because they didn't have to do that. They just like,
No.
she's acquitted, we figured it out. But it gave Celeste a lot of texture to her character right out of the gate, which I really appreciated. she's a mercenary, and so after the case, Tyrion brings her on as his bodyguard since he just pissed off a bunch of nobles for putting one up on the stand. So,
Yeah.
um, which I thought was pretty nice, and they do use the bodyguard thing. She does protect him at multiple points during the game, so it's not just like Maya where she's like, "This is my assistant." She's not really assisting me on anything. She's just framed for murder 1,000 times. The second case is where I fully felt the game started to really get its stride. The second case was
Mhm.
fairly interesting.
And
Um,
this is also where I felt the game was starting to play with Ace Attorney tropes. Because in the second case of Ace Attorney 1, your mentor dies, is the murder victim. So you're with your mentor, Rudy Tamora, and she goes missing while during a lockdown. And you think, okay, this is the murder happening. Oh, she's missing. Yeah, she's fucking
yep,
dead.
yep.
We're
That's what I
doing
thought.
we're doing Ace Attorney all over again. And then the lockdown lifts, and she just walking the halls like, "Oh, you're alive!" Like, "Oh, we're not doing this. We're gonna do something else totally different." Like, I
This has
appreciate
never happened before.
I appreciate using the trope as bait. I really thought that was a smart play.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and I also thought the premise was pretty much interesting. It was like a locked room mystery without it being actually a locked room
Mhm,
mystery. So the headmaster of the school that they're at gets murdered, and there's necromancy on his body, and there's only one student in the school that studies necromancy, and it's this kid named Margrave. But he was trapped in the library during the lockdown with you as Tyrion. But somehow, some way, there's necromancy on the body. Um,
and
and
so real
so,
quick, you do have a little backwards. It wasn't the headmaster that died, it was, like, the assistant headmaster or something like that, because he was still alive. It was the woman who got was murdered. What am
oh
I
right, yeah, I had it backwards. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The assistant headmaster was the one that was killed. The headmaster was still alive. Yeah.
oopsie.
Somebody died. Um, and so yeah, so there was necromancy on the body, so he became the prime suspect since he was the only one that practiced it. So
Mhm,
but he didn't do it because he was standing right in front of you the entire time, but nobody else saw that. And so you discover that the necromancy was from somebody trying to heal her, because healing is somehow
mhm.
in the necromancy tree.
I did like how that kind of twist. It makes sense of necromancy, the essence of life. So healing is,
Yes.
life. So I thought that was a clever twist of how they went about that.
Yes, and that's why Margrave wants to study necromancy is to be a doctor, which cool. That was a cool twist. He's not just some maniacal dude that we're getting acquitted because he actually didn't do it. No, he's a good character. Um, and so this trial is this master plan of these arcane constructs, which are basically robots that you can control with magic. And the headmaster had given one commands to kill the assistant headmaster, um, by killing her in the office, his office, and then like stuffing her inside like it's Five Nights at Freddy's, and then using decoy magic to disguise the arcane construct as the victim to carry the victim to a drop off point. Um, and it was very cleverly done. It was very
Yeah.
cleverly done. I think that was one of the first standout moments was like, oh, he used the arcane construct to orchestrate this murder.
Yeah, I thought was the same other case was the use of the explanation because they explained earlier, like oh, you tell the robot three commands in a row, but it can't do the second command. It will just stop. It won't
Yeah,
do the third command at all. I thought that's an interesting wrinkle. Why would it just not skip the second or the third? And I use that again because he planned to tell the robot all do all these things and eventually wipe its memory at the final stage, but then it couldn't do the final thing of dropping the victim off where he told it to do. So it just stopped. It never wiped its memory.
yeah,
So the fact that the robot was telling us, yeah, who was commanding? Oh, this guy did it. Like, oh, that was a good moment. I like that.
yeah. Like I said, case two came out pretty strong. with some really really good moments and some hard deductions. Um, yeah, it's just good. We also get in this case Celeste learning a ton of magic. Like by this point in the game, she went from no spells to learning like 7 spells.
Yeah, and
Uh,
everyone's taking note of that and going, "How is this possible?"
yes, yes. So she's very good at magic in this universe. Um, third case, um, third
This is
case
probably
is
the weakest, minus the tutorial case. This is probably the weakest case of the game.
I would agree. I would agree. I do think that they take an interesting approach with it, though. It
I
ends
do
up
too.
being a
It's a
civil
civil.
case. Yeah. Um, basically, this you're at Tyrion's hometown, and there is this big, essentially manufacturing like trade company, and then there's the local lord also has a trade company, but this other guy, commoner company, it bringing people in to work for him and stuff, and they're just gaining a lot of support, and so you are get brought in because a employee had fallen into a vat of chemical magic shit, a la Joker, and died. And so the suit front is brought against him by the noble of the town, who's basically trying to run him out of business.
Yeah, it's
So
not
you
a.
have. Oh, go ahead.
It's not a murder case. It's a civil suit for criminal negligence. So it's very interesting angle they take with this, and I'm kind of glad they did it because I don't think there's many cases. I don't think there's any case in Ace Attorney where it's not a murder case, just out off rip,
Yeah,
except for one, I think. But the fact they did this early on to say we're going to do a little twist on the formula, I did like that a lot.
yeah. And I mean, obviously, you end up finding out that there's foul play. The Lord commands a construct to basically go and try to sabotage the refinery, and ends up um, causing a little bit more havoc, resulting in the guy's death. Um, but yeah, it's just very interesting to have a civil trial where you're trying to prove that this was not an accident and there was no criminal negligence. Um, and because it's a civil trial, not a criminal trial, even though the Lord basically orchestrated the whole thing and it resulted in somebody's death, he wasn't held accountable because it was a civil trial. So, from top to bottom, I thought the premise was interesting. It just didn't quite land in terms of. Uh, it just needed some kind of something else as a wow factor.
Yeah, I need a little bit more pizzazz. Like I do dislike the fact that the linchpin in the case was again an arcane construct. So it's two ice in a row you did that. So like,
Yes.
I wish you would have used something else.
Yeah.
It made sense, but just like again,
Yeah, it made sense because the noble was the one that invented the constructs. But yeah, you used it for 2 cases in a row. It's like,
yeah, I do
uh,
think there was good character moments. We were introduced to the prince of the kingdom in this case. He's an interesting fellow when you first meet him.
yes, yes,
He doesn't tell you who he is at first, but he's really happy that you're not really. He says you're interrogating him, but you're not. You're just like you were in the area. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. You saw anything? This isn't an interrogation, but he's like super stoked that he's being interrogated.
yeah. His name is Aster, and he's like your biggest fan. Your biggest fan. He's a noble, but you don't know what level of noble, and he's just all about helping you, and a little too much, eager to help you. It doesn't have anything to do with the case, this case, but like just a little too eager to help you. You're also in Tyrion's hometown, so you get a little bit of Tyrion's background. His mother was basically killed because she was framed for a murder, and couldn't get acquitted, so she was sentenced to death.
Mhm.
Um, you meet one of Tyrion's childhood friends. Her name is Rika. Uh, she's a proprietress of a cafe. Um, they didn't really delve any deeper in that relationship. It was basically
No.
like, this is my friend from childhood, and the friend from childhood was sad when I left to go be a defense attorney. Like that was the extent of it.
Yeah, they don't. I will say they don't do a whole lot with her.
Mm,
I don't think she shows up again after the third case. Now that I
she
think
does
about
not.
it.
She does not. Um, um, but yeah, so the third case definitely the weakest one. You get some overarching story plots. It's cool. The civil trial premise is really cool, but it's just not executed to its fullest potential. I think just because they reuse the arcane constructs again, which is kind of sad.
Hmm.
Moving into the fourth case, this
This is
is
where the
where
game picks up.
yeah, this is where the game picks up, for sure. One of the main four pillar families, so the cream of the crop, they the patriarch gets murdered, and the number one suspect is the oldest daughter,
Yeah,
and the
they
oldest. Oh, go ahead.
so they do some clever things with this when the case opens though, because um, each of the other game, these are cases. I mean, don't start with a trial. They just kind of start you into the area and kind of witness what's going on. This drops you into a trial off the bat, and you're not playing Tyrion. You're playing Rudy, his mentor, which kind of like she's kind of like his mom in a sense. After I just said in this past case,
Yeah, well,
you
I
find
mean,
out,
she is his mom. That he is adopted by her,
yeah,
sort of.
sort of unofficial adoption, but yeah, basically she was his mom's defense attorney, who couldn't get the acquittal for her. So when she gets executed, she takes Tyrion under her wing and raises him um and to be a defense attorney. So you're playing her off rip, but you, as you're playing her, you can also see that she's not as clean cut
Noble.
as you noble. I guess you say noble, but yeah, she's not as by the book as Tyrion can be.
Yeah, so the trial opens up. You're defending the oldest daughter, and it's alluded to that Tamora has convinced the youngest daughter of this family to testify in support of the oldest daughter, and she does. And Tyrion, in her testimony, hears some contradictions that he just knows something's off. But he's not in the trial, so there's nothing he can do about it until Arya, the prosecutor, suddenly collapses out of nowhere because of injuries that she has sustained. She had Margrave, the healer from earlier, as her like assistant, and he was only there because he knew about her injuries and was basically healing her the whole time so that she could try the case. But unfortunately, her injuries become too much and she collapses. And so the trial's about to end with Tamora getting the acquittal, and then Tyrion Cuthbert jumps in to be the prosecutor.
And at first, the judge is like, "No, no, the fuck, you're not. You can't do that. Get him out." He was about to get arrested for contempt, and then apparently Arya was thought 5 moves ahead and knew Tyrion was going to do that. So she had this little paper ready to go to have the bailiff get to the judge. And he's like, "No, actually, you can't. He's I'm tapping him in," and
Yep.
he's like, "Oh, I guess he can do that then."
Yeah, so it's kind of cool that you get to be prosecutor this time around, actively
Mhm.
trying to prove that Tamora's client is in fact guilty of the murder. So from there, it cuts back in time to the the scene of the murder. Basically, you're attending a party. The victim gets murdered during the party, so you're kind of milling around and like exploring different exhibits of these ancient artifacts and talking to people. Aster's there, Celeste there. Tyrion gets a great moment where he's dancing with Celeste, who is now being positioned as his love interest,
I
which
do
I
say,
oh go ahead.
but you
I
go
was going to
first.
talk about their relationship.
That's what I was going to do too.
Okay.
You're going to say, he goes,
Yeah, so Maya was kind of always teased as a potential love interest for Phoenix. They were closer than friends. Nothing ever came out of it, but they had their moments where they were like, will they, won't they? But this game lays it on pretty thick.
uh,
Celeste, there's multiple times where Celeste's mind is being read by Tyrion, and she's saying like sweet, flirty things and stuff like that. But I I don't mind the relationship here. It does feel like it's naturally grown over the length of the game.
yeah, I was gonna say like I do kind of prefer it's. I mean, I never felt that way about Phoenix and Mine at all. I always felt they were just friends. You had Pearl in the original trilogy, trying to egg it on, but it was more just like random 7-year-old kid saying weird things. So, I especially if they're not game stakes, I don't think anything's gonna happen with Phoenix and Maya. I don't think anything ever should happen. I think they work better as a brother sister dynamic. But because of that, I think this works now as a flip flop. Because if we do the brother sister dynamic again, I think you're like, oh, you're ripping off Ace Attorney even more. So allowing these two to kind of get together as a thing kind of allows it to be similar but still different in its own unique thing.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so you get to dance with Celeste, and then the whole place goes on lockdown, and the murder happens. You're frantically collecting evidence, just because, and on the behalf of Aster, who you now know is the crown prince.
Hmm.
And he had a former relationship with the oldest daughter, and just wants to look out for her. And so he knows something else is up. So he asks you to kind of do a private investigation. So they they kind of bury the lead on what Tyrion's impact going to be here. Obviously, you know you're going to trial, but you don't know in what form. Well, you do know in what form because it happened before, but in Tyrion's mind, he doesn't know. He's just been asked by a friend to do some private investigating, and so you investigate the crime, um, and then you jump into the trial to be the prosecutor, um, and you know that at this point that Tamora has fabricated the youngest's testimony, basically kind of threatening her with blackmail. And so this is where Tamora and Tyrion's relationship fractures. Because he is on the side of justice and she's on the side of winning the trial no matter what, because commoners really don't get a chance at at victory, just like Tyrion's mother.
Yeah, and I thought that they played it really well. Because there's a lot of times during like um once it's official, like he's the prosecutor, a lot of the other characters, like your detective character is kind of animosity towards you for most of the game. And then well, you see you can prosecute, like, oh well, okay, I guess I work for you now. But he's also, you kind of notice that's kind of when the shift in him begins too, because um he always had his doubts about you because you were mentored by Rudy and he did not like her at all. But the fact that now you're basically standing against her, someone who's basically his mother basically, and he's still doing that, like, okay, no, this, you're different. You actually care about the truth.
Yeah, the game alludes to the fact that Tamora is corrupt at the very first case.
Hmm.
Uh, the lead investigator's like, yeah, she lies and cheats to win, and you're like, no, she doesn't. And then and then you go investigate the case, but no, now it's very clear that she does. Even to the point where when the sentiment towards her client starts to shift as Tyrion proves more and more. Tamora is revealed to be working for this basically mob boss named the Eye Taker, who's a very, very dangerous dude. And she almost forces Tyrion to basically drop the case. And when he refuses, his life is put in danger and luckily is saved by Celeste, um, the master mercenary that she is. And so, in the final moments of the case, it is revealed that the eldest daughter, who is blind, who's blind, uh, uh, killed her dad by utilizing her pact with a demon. And so, this is the first appearance of the demons. Humans can form pacts with them that are written in writing. And Tyrion, for some reason, has the ability to manifest these contracts for him to read, um, and you can see the terms of the contract. So this little demon guy, his name's Marunath, and um, the oldest daughter basically commands him to kill her dad, and that's the case. Um,
They
not to
do,
say
I
there aren't.
think.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, not to say there aren't wacky moments in the case. There was a archaeologist that was present that you, for a brief moment, think is suspicious. And you bring his pet monkey to the stand
It's nice attorney if
to
you don't.
testify.
It's attorney
Uh,
if not cross-examine an animal.
Yes. It turns out that the monkey is intelligent because he stole this ancient artifact that like basically grants you intelligence. So he's actually very, 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 very smart.
The fact when he pulled out the pipe, I was just like, "What the fuck is happening?" I mean, it's turning bullshit, but what the fuck? Even the judge is like, I want to go home now, man. I've
Yes.
seen it all."
Yes. The twist where he pulls out the pipe because he's the one that stole the intelligent increasing artifact. That was a really cool moment. When we get to see Maronath for the first time, I was like, "Oh shit, that's super cool." Um,
I thought it was clever a couple of things they did with because they established at this point with the demon. The demons cannot lie.
yes,
They can tell you, versions. They can leave things out, so they can lie by omission, but they cannot directly lie.
yes,
Because and the way to test it out is, he just literally looks at the demon point blank and goes, "Say my hair is green." And he goes, "Oh, you said yourself, your hair is green." No, that's not what I said. Just tell me my hair is green. Couldn't do it.
yep,
Um, and like Rudy's like, "This is stupid. You care about it's like, I get it, but he answered the question.
yep, yep. So yeah, and that's a cool premise too. So you have this character that is testifying in defense of his master, basically, but he cannot lie. So it's all of these like half truths and like manipulating what he's saying to make it true. And so you couldn't present any evidence against him because there was no contradictions. You just had to basically instinctually say like, something about that's wrong.
What is he not saying, basically?
Exactly. Which was a very, very nice spin on the formula, because the formula is you say lie, I say evidence to show the contradiction. Well, what if there are no contradictions? Because the testimony is not a lie. So it was very interesting to see that. I liked that section quite a lot.
Hmm. The ending of the case was also, it was good, but also pretty sad because we there is a fallout after the case is over, and Phoenix is triumphant over Rudy, where they go meet in the
Tyrion.
courtroom
You said
lobby.
you said Phoenix.
I said Phoenix. Oopsie.
Yeah, you said Phoenix.
Oh well, you
Tyrion.
know what I mean. Tyrion. He meets Rudy outside in the courtroom lobby, and it is not a pleasant conversation they have.
No, he
She's trying.
basically.
She's trying to make amends, and he's not having it.
Yeah, I mean his life was just put at risk,
That was
because
at risk.
the eye taker's still out there, and he shirked his offer, so he's target number one now.
And the fact that he found out his mentor is,
Corrupt.
corrupt and doing things with the books to, put innocent people in prison, even though they didn't deserve it.
Yep. And she tries to justify it by saying that people like his mother don't get a chance at justice without these kind of edges, and he just flat out disagrees. So moving into case 5. I think it happens a month after case 4, because I think they say that he's not
Yeah, about
done
a
any
month.
work for a month. Um,
Because
and
he's been hiding
yes,
because of the Night
because
Taker.
I take her. And so he gets summoned by Pierce, the villain from the first case, in a letter saying that he knows who Celeste's parents are. So Celeste is adopted by her mother and father. Um, she was just dropped off at their inn one night, and they don't ever know who Celeste's parents are. And Pierce is claiming that he does. And so they go to meet him, and it's during this weird party of all of the like main nobles from the game. Like all of the main nobles are here, including Aster, including Lucio, who is Arya's father. All of this stuff.
It was definitely kind of like, oh, shit's about to go down. I saw whom were there, like, oh, this is a bad sign.
Yeah, I was immediately thinking in my mind mass murder. I was like, oh my god, all these characters are gonna die. It turns out that was a kind of a pre-marriage thing for Arya and Aster, who are engaged to be married, but
There was a
also
lot of things.
yeah, but
There's a
also
funeral.
a funeral, yeah, for Aster's dad, the king, and kind of a crowning ceremony for Aster as he became king, all in one. So all of the nobles of the major houses were there, um, and some side characters. So uh, the middle child for what is their name? I can never remember the name. It's like Helga.
Oh, you're talking about the little kid?
No, 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 no. The three sisters. What is their last name?
The beach tree? No, that's the name. I'm spacing their name. I'm totally spacing their name.
It's like Helga. The family with the three daughters. All three of them are there. Well, the middle daughter is now like the leader since the oldest one is now in jail, but the oldest one is there too. With Eris, who is a character that was shown off in the second case of the game and has shown to be very important. She has this ability to manipulate what is being shown to you as the player. Um, so right off the jump, you know she's evil. But prior to the case 5 starting, she actually is disguised as the Eye Taker's daughter. We learned that in case 4, and at the beginning of case 5, she kills the Eye Taker.
So
And so
yeah, he was
you know she's evil.
yeah, Tyrion was in hiding for no reason because he didn't know the Eye Taker was dead now already.
Yeah, and so Eris is there, and you're wondering why she's there. And then so you talk to people, you're trying to figure out what's going on, but nobody wants to say what's going on, especially to you because you are two commoners who shouldn't even be there. They're all very confused as to
They're
why
very
you were
concerned why
there.
you're there.
And even when you say, "Oh yeah, Pierce told us to come," everybody's still very confused as to why you're there. And so at your scheduled meeting time, you go to meet Pierce and you start talking to him, and Celeste hears something
Pierce
outside the door.
and Pierce is confused as to why you're there. He
Yeah,
says he did not give you any letter.
yeah, he's also confused, and so as that conversation starts, Celeste goes to investigate a noise she heard, and then out of nowhere, the oldest daughter of the one that murdered her dad appears in front of you and puts you to sleep. Um, and then you wake up with Celeste over top of you, and Pierce has been killed.
Yeah, she's
So
crying. Celeste is crying. Pierce has been killed, and you find out that multiple other people have been killed. The guy who committed the murder in case 3, he find out he was getting to get off just because of nobility crap when his trial, his criminal trial. Um, like the house that leads like the judges' ships and all that stuff. She was killed. I think there's a third murder besides Pierce. Something like that. I forget.
no,
Um,
it was just the three.
just 3. Okay, so those 3 were killed.
Sanctus,
Um,
the leader of the House of the Judges, and then Pierce.
yeah. Um, but you find out the person who thinks, well, not even people think, because there's multiple witnesses saying they saw her do it. The murderer is Arya,
Mhm.
which is just like, how? Why? It doesn't make sense. And now, I said everyone is saying she did it because they saw her do it. But Arya says she has no recollection of it, but she does believe people when they say that she did it. So she willingly gets arrested, uh, and is seemingly going to just let herself be sacrificed to, in her mind, think protect everyone. But Tyrion convinces her, sacrifice yourself is not going to protect anyone because if you didn't do it and there's another pre play, they're still out there and can do it again. So you need to let me defend you so we can figure out who actually did this.
Yeah, and so you start investigating. You find out that you know Pierce had traces of transmutation magic, so kind of like his shape liquid spell on him. Von Sanctus, the guy that was over the trade house, has a certain kind of magic on him that basically he was trying to shield himself. You don't find the leader of the judge's house because she was thrown off a cliff. Um, but you just find a lot of odd things around you that doesn't really match up to what other people are saying. Um, and so you go into trial really not knowing what happened, but knowing that you have to protect Arya.
Yeah, they do a thing because since this noble meeting was in secret, and so it was a bunch of nobles and murdered. They wanted to keep this thing under wraps. for as much as possible for as long as they can until basically they don't want the people to go into a panic. So they want to know who did it and what to and have a plan for after the fact before they release this information. So it's not in the same courtroom as you've been the entire game. It's off in the middle of nowhere in some abandoned ruins. Um, your prosecutor is Arya's father, Lucio, and the judge is the dragon they all worship.
Yes. Yeah. He's been in a human form, and he kind of like middles around the case, and he basically asks you like, are you going to pursue justice in this case? And you say yes, and he's like, okay, cool, let's go. And then he takes you to the ruins, and then he transforms into his dragon form, which is kind of cool because anytime a judge would have banged a gavel, he roars to shut everybody up, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. All the
Um,
nobles in the gallery are like, what the hell's happening? Why there's a
yes,
dragon here?
yes. And so you have your evidence. You don't know how, but it's not Arya. Your main subject is Beatrice, the oldest daughter, and there's just so much else to it, and there is. And so as you go through the trial, um, you discover that Arya has a pact with a demon, and you're like, how could that be? Well, she was tricked into signing it, and it turns out that Celeste also has a contract with a demon, um, because you actually got killed when you were put to sleep. And so Celeste wanted to bring you back, so she signed the contract with the demon to bring you back. And then, her part of her contract was to make Arya sign the contract. And basically, Arya's contract allowed the demon to take control over her and kill everybody. So it actually was Arya that murdered everybody, but at the direction of a demon, allegedly. Um, and so you start unraveling all of this, and basically to unravel that Eris is this like queen of demons that had taken over Arya to kill everybody, um, by like basically using their own magic against them. Von Sanctus put a
Yeah.
shield up, so she set the room on fire, basically
Burn
taking
all
away
the
all the
oxygen.
oxygen, and he suffocated. And with the leader of the judge house, she
Turn yourself into stone
turned herself
to
into
protect
stone
yourself.
to protect herself, but then she was thrown into the ocean and sank to the bottom and died. And so, part of Celeste's contract was that she got to kill Pierce, and she did it in the same way that he killed her father. But Tyrion
It
just
was
didn't believe this.
no, Celeste claims she did it because she wanted Eris told her so she can bring Tyrion back to life, but the cost was going to be you have to kill him, and she was willing to do it. So she signs. Well, she was willing to do it, but uh, as you find out, because you find out Eris is doing all of this, orchestrating all of this, not for any reason, but just to fuck with you.
Yep.
She hates Tyrion with a burning passion for no reason other than just pure hatred. Just
Well,
as
they
this
do
to be
they
a
do kind of get into the reason. So
well, yeah.
Tyrion is somebody that's been like touched by the light. He's from the kingdom up north that has these people called the Lumina. So he's
Mhm.
basically an angel to her demon, basically. And so his powers come from light, hers come from dark, that whole shtick. So that's kind of the basis. But other than that, like there is no reason. Just this dude needs to be brought to his knees.
Yeah. So very very Monokuma wants to get people into despair mode.
Yes, yes,
um, but you go into an interesting kind of final battle because um I thought it was clever how this game actually has like a final battle.
yes,
Um, so to actually see the blunt contract and find the loophole for Celeste, because Celeste is adamant like I killed Pierce to save you. She's understandable that you're mad at her for doing that, but she also doesn't regret it. But you still feel like something's off here. So you, in a sense, knock yourself out to go to the sixth circle of hell, basically, which she
yep,
rules, and have a final debate with argument with her. But there's a catch, basically, because of the demon, where she can't lie. Same thing. Everything's by omission, but neither can you. And you
yes.
presenting false evidence is considered a lie. So you have your 2 health bars whittling down, um, as you go back and forth. Um, and what's clever is by the end of it, she's, after you get her like this much health left, like, boy, one more thing will do it. She starts spewing all this crap at you, and he just sitting there like, okay, damn it. And she thinks she got you cornered. Like, I said all these things. I clearly, I'm telling the truth because I literally physically cannot tell a lie. And he just goes, "Oh, you absolute idiot! You just told me everything." Because he basically tells him like, all the people who were in that room were you, me, Beatrice, Celeste, and Pierce. And she goes, and obviously you didn't kill him because you were knocked out. And me and Beatrice didn't kill him. So what are you going to do about that? Let's leave Celeste. Um, and he just kind of goes, but you didn't say Pierce. So in the end moment, Pierce realized what was going on, and people were arguing over kind of his fate. He goes, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go on my own terms. I'm just going to take myself out.
Yep.
And so he kills himself. And Celeste looks at him and goes, well, I can't fulfill the contract, but I'm going to sign anyway. So she can't get, there still has to fit her into the bargain, but Celeste never actually killed anybody. So it was trapped in a loophole that Tyrion finds out. But because the contract was never filled correctly, it's null and void.
Yep. So Celeste gets her life back. You didn't die. Everybody's happy. Except, wait, there's a third player at risk here. In Arya's contract, there's this patron that gets control over her. And so the final leg of the game is just figuring out who this patron is. And it all comes down to timing. During the events, Aster was trapped in a cage, or so we thought, when in fact he was the patron and he was partnering with Aerys to gain control over the kingdom, to remake it in his image. And so he has a very Ace Attorney 2 Case 4 kind of change in his demeanor as he becomes a villain.
Yeah, I mean, I will say his villain turn wasn't like, I just want to be the king because I'm more powerful. His villain turn was very, you understood what he was saying. He was obviously going about the wrong way, but he said, I did it because, like, you saw, look how the king nobles treat this kingdom. They've been doing this for decades, centuries. Like, something had to be done about them. I was a thing that was doing something about it then. Nemo points out the fact, like, you can't do that. Well, the rules say that you all said I actually can do that. This is the rules you all created. So like you kind of like you understand where you're coming from, but like as the king, you shouldn't do that because you're just creating more absolute power for yourself. So eventually, because they're kind of realizing, oh, well, we're in a catch-22. We can't prosecute him, but we also can't let him get away with this. So Lucio's just decides, no, fuck it, kills him.
Yep. And so Lucio gets unfortunately imprisoned for, regicide, but the kingdom's better off. You discover that Celeste is Rathalion, the dragon's daughter. And so she is next of kin, essentially, since she is part dragon. So she becomes ruler of the kingdom with Tyrion at her side.
I probably should probably note this. The reason why Aster also orchestrates all this to also take down Celeste because Pierce was the one who was supposed to tell Aster about who her parents were, and Aster figured it out who her parents are. So he figured if the only way only person who could stop him from doing what he's doing was Celeste, because the dragon can just go, okay, you're not the king anymore, she's the queen. So it's all a kind of chess piece on the board to stop that from happening. But unfortunately, his idol was also his demise.
Yep. And so Celeste and Tyrion kind of live happily. Well, maybe not happily ever after there's a second game, but at least for now, they are happy in their new roles, and trying to make the kingdom a better place for everybody. So
yeah, she's the queen now. He's now prosecutor now.
Yes,
which is interesting. I did find the actual ending of the game though pretty funny. How they end on So like they're talking about the newspaper like, all right, here's everything that happened, explaining, they're doing a cover up for how the nobles died and explain who the new ruler is.
Yeah.
And Rudy's like, oh, this is because they do Tyrion and Rudy make up during the course of the fifth game because he realizes that Rudy also has a blood contract, so everyone's getting manipulated by Eris.
Yes.
But they do hash out their differences. And Rudy apologizes for saying like, you know what, you're right. I was doing things the wrong way. I was letting my hatred take over, and I was making you carry the burden of that hatred.
Yep.
But she's like, hearing all this, and she's like, this is probably just another political coup. This is all a cover up. She opens the newspaper and sees it's Celeste is now the queen of the kingdom, and she's like, what the fuck? And just cuts.
Yeah. 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 It was a great moment. It was a great moment. But yeah, overall, I mean, the story was pretty solid.
Mhm.
I do think there's parts that can be improved on that we touched in the non-spoiler section, but yeah, it was an enjoyable game. It was an enjoyable game with a very clear overarching storyline, clear character development for pretty much everybody. It's just a solid case. Solid game, solid game, solid case, a solid game.
Definitely, yeah. As you said earlier, like they haven't said anything. I'm looking at Diamond Hedge's Twitters every so often, see if there's a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter to help fund the second game. Like, you post that up, and I will be gladly help out.
Yep. Well, with that, I think 8.25 average score. That's where we're gonna leave it. Play Tyrion Cuthbert it's a very, very, very good game. Especially if you like Ace Attorney. If you like
on
Ace Attorney
Steam.
but love Magic, this is for you. It's on Steam. Hope it comes to other systems.
I'm surprised on the Switch. I'm generally surprised by
Yeah,
that.
it would be doing gangbusters on Switch if it released on Switch. So hopefully that happens soon. But if you've got a PC, Steam Deck, all of that stuff, it is available there. Next review maybe would be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. No, Peach. Peach is next.
Peach, it'll
is
be
definitely next.
Peach. I'm
Peach is
almost on
definitely
Peach.
next. Peach is definitely next. Final Fantasy VII, whenever. But Peach is definitely next. So that one's easy. We both can knock that out in the next couple days. That's easy. But until next time, stay tuned to the Games and Culture podcast for all of your gaming news. And we will see you in the next review for Princess Peach sometime in the near future. Thanks, everybody.
Adios.